Action. Hey everyone, this is where we last left. We had our top navigation, our bottom navigation. Don't be irritated, I just added one more item to it. And yeah, okay, we got our navigation, but to be honest, that lesson doesn't look too fancy, does it? So let's change something about this. Now, first thing is, I'd like you to add one additional item to your footer navigation as well. And if you forgot how this works, you just go to your menus option here in the appearance section of on your dashboard. You either create a new footer menu if you don't have one yet, or you edit it by just selecting the menu to edit. In my case, I already have one, footer menu item, links. And then you just want to click one of these pages here and add to menu until you have at least two. Then hit save and you should be on the same line. Okay, so I'd like to have some various changes to our navigation. First, I don't want these bullet points. I want all the links to be lined up next to each other, both for the top and bottom navigation. So let's do this. So in our style.css, we got our currently menu class styling with the blue background color. And be aware that the menu class is not added to some div around our menu, but to the unordered list which holds our menu links. And therefore, if we want to style this unordered list, all we have to do is to write unordered list.menu with no space between, so that only unordered lists which have a class of menu are targeted, because we don't want our menu styling to apply to every unordered list we might have anywhere on our site. So to get started, let's get rid of the padding and the margin of the unordered list. Also, we don't want a list style, so list style of none should be good. If we refresh, okay, we can see that the background is gone because I deleted it, but also the bullet points and else are gone. So next step is to line those items up, and I'm going to do this by targeting unordered list.menu space li for the list items within this unordered list, and I'll set some padding here of 0 from top and bottom, but 16 pixels left and right. And I also want to set display to inline block so that they appear in one line. Okay, so now we got our spaced out links, but obviously we want them to align here. We want to have some spacing to the top, and so we basically need to wrap them in a container. So let's inspect if we already do have a container here. And we do have a container of menu 1 container, and in the footer it's menu footer menu links container. And we can't really use these containers because the names of the containers are actually the names we provide in our dashboard. And we can't know them in advance because that's something the user sets. So we can't work with that. What we can do is go to our header.php and add one additional argument here. And this argument is called container class, which says add a container to our menu and add this class we specify here. So I'm calling this menu header, and I want the same thing at our footer. Container class will be menu footer. And now we can style our two menus independently, and also independently of which names the user might set. So let's begin with the header, menu header and menu footer. So I was wrong, we're beginning with both. should have a padding of 16 pixels from top and bottom and 32 pixels from left and right, just like our main section does also have a margin of 32 pixels. So if we refresh now, looks better, but now it's too much to the right. It's not aligned on the left edge. Now this comes because here we specified a padding of 16 pixels to left and right on each menu item here. So first thing I'm going to do is actually just setting this for the header menu. And I can directly target a list item within this menu header class. Because I will do it differently in the footer later. So let's remove it here. And I also want to make sure that our first of type item will have no padding left. And symmetrically, I want the last of type item to have no padding to the right. So if we now refresh, we will see that this home item moves to the left and is perfectly aligned to this edge. There we go. And the same goes for the footer because we just removed the padding overall. That's why, as we only set the 16 pixels in the header, this is much closer to each other than the header navigation links are. Okay, so we're getting there. Now, what I also want to do is I want to increase the font size of our header navigation items. So the menu header will have a font size of, let's say, 28 pixels. Whereas in the footer, I want to have them smaller than the rest of the content, so I'm gonna set font size of 14 pixels. Now let's refresh again. And now we got this much bigger navigation here and a smaller one here. Okay, now these links look ugly. Let's do something about this. Menu header, a link, and menu header, a visited will have style of, let's say we add a nice red, and I got one prepared here. This is a 1515. And we don't want any text decoration. Okay, now everything's red. No, this is wrong. I want this different. Wait a second. We want this for hover and active. So there I want the color of a 15 and text decoration of non 2. And here I think a dark gray will fit better. So now everything is gray, but if we hover over it, we get this nice red. Now I think it would also be cool to set all items to a font weight of bold. Yeah, I think this looks cool. So we're getting there. Now I also want to have some border at the bottom of our navigation here. So I'm going to go to menu header and set border bottom of, let's say, 2 pixels, also dark gray. Oh, and it is a solid border. Yeah, that doesn't look too shabby. I also think the web page we're currently on, so in this case the home page, should be highlighted in this red by default. Now WordPress makes that easy for us because it automatically adds a class of current menu item, as you can see when you inspect it, current menu item here, to the menu item of the web page you're currently on. So we can just style this class. Current menu item will have a color of our red here. Oh, not the item itself, but the link. Current menu item, visited. Okay, so now we got this in red by default and still get our hover effect. So I think this looks a lot better already. Maybe add some shadow to this border. Back to this class. Box shadow. Vertically maybe 2 pixels. 0 pixels horizontally. A little bit of spread and also the dark gray. Maybe this should be 1 pixel then. Well, I think this looks better. If we use these 5 pixels here, yeah, that looks good. Now at the footer menu, we also have got some work to do. Now I want these links to be in dark gray every time, even if you're on the page. And I want to have some vertical lines between them. Now there are different ways to achieve this, but I'm going to show you a pure CSS one. So first, let's make sure that all links in a footer are gray all the time. So at the bottom of our style.css, I'm gonna add menu footer a link and menu footer a visited has a color of the dark gray. If you hover over them, however, I also wanted nice red. Hover and active will get a color of AF1515. Oh, and also let's make sure that we don't have any text decoration of none, no underlinings. Now looks good. Now let's add these vertical lines. I'm going to do this by selecting menu footer li after. This is a pseudo selector of CSS, and it says enter some content after the selected item. So therefore we provide the content property, and in quotation marks we will basically write the text which should be appended to every selected item, in this case all li items in the menu footer class. So we'll have space, then pipe space, and this should also be in dark gray. If we now refresh, we get these nice pipes here, but obviously we don't want to have one after the last menu item. So we're gonna remove this by writing menu footer li last of type after to select the last menu item in the bottom footer, in the footer navigation. And here we're gonna set content to empty quotation marks so that nothing is added. Okay, cool. So this looks the way I want. Now I also want to style our posts a little bit nicer, and we will work in increments in all of the next videos on this, but what I want to do now is let's add at least a horizontal line between blog posts but not after the last one. Now, to do this, we also need to wrap our blog posts in containers. And you might think that we could add some argument with some add class stuff again, but we don't have to do this because we already are in full control of how our post content is displayed. And we got our content.php where we actually render our blog post. So all we're gonna do is manually add a div item here with the class of, let's say, blog post. And Cloud9 doesn't like dashes, blog post, and copy all of our code inside it. So nothing changes as of yet, so we just set it into a div. Or more syntactically correct, let's use an article element. I think that's semantically the better way. Nonetheless, let's get into styling it. As I said, it would be nice to have a horizontal line at the end of our blog post. So something like a border, bottom, 1 pixel, solid, and then maybe some gray. And I left this in the video because I think it's interesting. As you can see, it looks good, but we only have it after the last post and not between the posts. This is because I didn't look at this code long enough. It's wrong to wrap this whole code into an article class because this code contains our loop where we loop through all blog posts. So if we do it this way, we're wrapping all of our blog posts into a container. However, we want to wrap every single one into a container, and this is why we have to add our article tags between these loop controls here. So like this. So that's the way to do it, and if we now refresh, we will get an additional line. Yeah, like this. Now to remove the last line, which we don't want, we go back to our style.css, and you already know this trick. Blog post last of type will have a border of none. Now if we refresh, we don't have a border at the last blog post anymore. Now maybe let's style this a little bit more. Here a little less margin. This in a different color. We got a margin here of 32 pixels and we got one here. So back to our style.css. The main section has a margin of 32 pixels. I think I want less to top and bottom, so 16 pixels should be enough here. And if we refresh, yeah, that looks better. And now let's also style our h1 tag differently. I want it to have a color of dark gray. And a different font would also look great, I think. So I'm over at Google Fonts and I've looked around a little bit, and I think this EXO font wouldn't look too bad. So to get it, we just click here on Quick Use, and I want it in the ultra bold version, I think. This is all okay, and then we just copy this link here, go back to our editor, to index.php, so excuse me, to header.php, and inside our head section, right above the WP head function, we just paste in this link. And now we can use our font. And it's important, please notice, to paste it in above this WP head, because if we were to paste it in below, our style.css file, which gets inserted here through this hook, would not be able to use the font if this function would be above this link, because the link would get loaded after our style sheet would get loaded. So let's set a font family of EXO and a fallback of sans serif. Yeah, maybe a little bit bigger. Our posts. Let's leave it like that for the moment. So, in the next video, we're going to do something about these posts. Show you how to create an index page where we just got summaries, and single pages when we click on a post where we got the whole post itself. And we also tune this styling a little bit more. So I hope to see you soon. Leave some feedback if you want, and have a nice day. Bye.